So I'm not going to dress up for this one because it's late and I don't have anything that... Well, I don't have a red tie. I could have worn a red tie with a white shirt, but no, I couldn't be bothered. Was it a red tie? I can't remember now. But the last two videos have been the ranking videos. I do have a what the fuck did I buy coming up. I'm just waiting for a few more things because at the moment what I've got isn't really worthy of a video because there's not a huge amount. So I thought I'd do another ranking video. Quite enjoy doing these ranking videos where I get to talk about the films from a specific director and that I can then rank how I feel about those films. Obviously it's going to be subjective. It's not going to be the same for everyone. So my list and my order and my ranking is going to be very different to someone else. So I'm going to rank another filmmaker, but I'm going to go a little bit further back because this filmmaker doesn't have a huge amount of stuff in his filmography as a filmmaker to really warrant the video, but he does have quite an extensive history prior to his first feature film. So the director that I am talking about today is Mr. Edgar Wright. Mr. Edgar Wright, British filmmaker, born in Somerset, started off making films at a young age with like spoof movies of westerns and cop films. He's a big movie buff, really wanted to get into the film business, and directed his first film, which was called Dead Right, when he was like 15, 16, I think it was. It might have been even younger, like 14, 15, in the town of Wells in Somerset, which is where Hot Fuzz is set. And yeah, so that was his first film. It was like a spoof of Dirty Harry, where it was a bunch of kids dressed in suits, and just, it was quite funny. But you could see early on his sort of filmmaking style, which he then later carried on to more obviously more well-known films like Shaun of the Dead and Dawn and Hot Fuzz and stuff like that. But then he followed up Dead Right with a feature-length film. I mean, Dead Right wasn't a full-length feature. I think it was like 40 minutes, 45 minutes. But his follow-up was a spoof of spaghetti westerns called A Fistful of Fingers. And that was shot very cheaply in and around Wells and in Somerset. But again, it showcased a person, a filmmaker, a young filmmaker, who was destined to go places. But after that, because he was still quite young. I think he was in college when he did Fistful of Fingers. He was in college when he did Fistful of Fingers, but you could see that there was a lot of energy behind him wanting to be a filmmaker. But between A Fistful of Fingers and his first feature film, he spent most of the time as a director of television shows, like a couple of episodes of French and Saunders. I'm looking at my notes because I've written some stuff down, like French and Saunders and Murder Most Horrid, which was a comedy show starring Dawn French. Each episode was like a murder mystery story, but it was a comedy, obviously. And then French and Saunders was the sketch show. But he also directed quite a few series. He directed every single episode of specific series. So the first one he directed was one called Asylum in 1996. And that ran for 6 episodes. He directed 6 episodes of that. And that was a sort of like precursor to like something like the Mighty Boosh, as it was created by Julian Barrett, who is one of the co-creators of The Mighty Boosh. But the other show that he directed every episode of at the time was Mash and Peas, which was a sketch show written by and starring Matt Lucas and David Walliams, which was their first collaboration before Little Britain and Come Fly With Me. And that featured lots of different people in different comedic roles and stuff. Like Simon Pegg was in it. I think Jessica Hines, or at the time she was known as Jessica Stevenson, she was in it. And so he directed those 2 shows and kind of got noticed a little bit because he was then asked to do Is It Bill Bailey, which was like a stand-up sketch show starring Bill Bailey, who's a British comedian and multi-instrumentalist. His stand-up shows are absolutely phenomenal. He's been in everything from Black Books to Hot Fuzz, and he was in Spaced, and he's also in Chalet Girl, one of my guilty pleasure movies, Chalet Girl. So he directed all 6 episodes of that, and then the following year in 1999 he directed 6 episodes of Sir Bernard's Stately Homes, which again is like a comedy spoof on those stately home shows that the BBC used to do, where you'd have like a presenter would go around and do like a history on these stately homes, and this is that Sir Bernard's Stately Homes was a spoof on that. But the same year as Sir Bernard's Stately Homes, he directed probably his calling card, which were both seasons or both series of Spaced, written and starring Jessica Stevenson, now Hines, and Simon Pegg, which is where the working relationship between Pegg and Wright really got into the flow of things. So I remember first seeing Simon Pegg in, I think it was Big Train, which was a sitcom, it was a sketch show, sort of rivaled the Fast Show, but it was just, there's a lot of stuff in Big Train that I still quote now. It was quite influential. At the time, it was probably ahead of its time when the BBC put it out. Obviously, the Fast Show is more like rapid fire, silly gags and stuff, more along the lines of Harry Enfield type of sketches and like, just quick stuff like Jesse's Diets. But Big Train had a slightly more intellectual side to it, even though the jokes are really stupid, like a guy asking someone where a pub is right next to it, and that person turning around going, "I'm sorry, I don't speak English." Just bonkers. And there was the fat-handed twat man. There was they had these animated sequences where it was a staring contest, and it was like commentated like it was a football match or a boxing match. It was fantastic. But that was where I think I saw Simon Pegg for the first time. So when I first saw Spaced and just discovered this world of nerdiness that I didn't know existed, even though I was part of it at the time, because I love Star Wars, I love comics, I love movies and stuff. And this TV show, Spaced, seemed like it was aimed directly at me. And I love Spaced. And again, like I said, it got me into like more cult sci-fi type of stuff, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Spaced is fucking awesome. It's even though I'm ranking his movies, I have got Spaced in there because it is kind of like one of the biggest things, I think, in his career. It's what made his career, essentially. So, kicking off number 1, and this will probably piss someone off, piss a few people off, but my least favourite Edgar Wright movie is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This is the Steelbook edition. I didn't go out of my way to pay a lot of money for this. It was cheap. I think I picked it up in CEX, very cheap at the time when it was released. Or my brother picked it up for me. Why am I not a fan of it? I just think it's a bit over the top. I'm not a fan of Michael Cera. He's one of these actors that I can only take in very short doses, and an entire film of Michael Cera in a lead kind of puts me off. Again, like I said, I think it's a bit too over the top. I know the comic book, well, the graphic novel, the comics are like that, and I know the video game is a bit like that as well, but the movie, I'm just not a huge fan of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I mean, it's got a great cast in it. It's got Chris Evans in it. It's got Brandon Routh in it. What's his name? Oh, it's got David Schwartzman. Is it Schwartzman? No, Jason Schwartzman from the Wes Anderson movies. But this movie does have, I don't know if you can see, it does have Kate. I can't even remember her name. She's married to Ewan McGregor. She's fucking awesome. She plays Ramona Flowers in this. She's got that really cool action movie on Netflix where she plays an assassin. I really want to watch that again. Fucking hell, what's her name? She's in Death Proof. Let me find Death Proof. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, that's her name. As soon as I picked up Death Proof, it was there. So yeah, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is not a big favourite of mine, I gotta admit. I find it a bit of a bore and just a little bit too quirky for my liking. So then, again, I know loads of people absolutely adore this film. It's okay. It's okay. It's not great. But it's Baby Driver. I don't know. I love car chase movies. I love action movies. I love movies that have great soundtracks. But for some reason, I'm not sure on Baby Driver. I've only watched it maybe once, I think, when it first came out on Blu-ray. So I'm gonna try it again. That's why I own it. It was very cheap. I think I paid like £2.50 for this in CEX. So yeah, I don't know if I'm sold on Baby Driver. It's not what I was expecting from Edgar Wright. I don't know. Ansel Elgort, Kevin Spacey, Lily James, Isaac Gonzalez, John Hamm, and Jamie Foxx. There is a cameo from Paul Williams in this, who wrote the music for Bugsy Malone and the music for Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, and he plays he essentially plays the devil in that film as well. But yeah, Baby Driver, it's just not one I can gel with. I'm just not a huge fan. I don't understand why. Maybe I need to reevaluate Baby Driver. Who knows? Then we've got now, this isn't to say this movie's bad at all, because I love this film. I think it's fantastic. It's brilliantly written. It's creepy, and it's probably his best. Well, it is his best non-Cornetto trilogy movie, and it's Last Night in Soho with Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy, who I recently just watched in Furiosa, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. But if you listen to the podcast, you would have known that. I really liked Last Night in Soho. The cinematography is fantastic. The soundtrack is amazing. All the performances are spot on. Edgar Wright's direction on this film is just incredible. The production design of 1960 Soho just looks incredible. Even Matt Smith, who I'm not a fan of, because I'm not a fan of Doctor Who, and I've never really seen him in anything that I actually like him in, I actually quite liked his character in this. So yeah, Last Night at Soho. So like the bottom three are the three non-Cornetto trilogy movies. So Scott Pilgrim, Baby Driver, and Last Night in Soho. Now the reason I've put them there is because you cannot beat the Cornetto trilogy. Which brings me to my next pick, The World's End. Now, if I was going to put The World's End in the top 5, or top 3, I would feel bad about doing that, because while it is a really good film, it's so funny. There is a darker tone to this film, especially Gary King's personality. He suffers from mental illness and tried to kill himself, and he's obsessed with continuing something that he did as a teenager, but as a near 40-year-old man. All his friends have left that life behind because they've grown up and become adults and stuff, and so he manages to get them all together to try and do the 12, is it 12 pubs? Yeah, I think it's 12 pub crawl one last time to see if they can complete it, because as teenagers, or in their late teens, they never managed to complete it. But all of them have grown up. They have their separate lives. They haven't really been in contact with Gary for a long time. But he does manage to get them all together, and he does manage to start them on the pub crawl. But unfortunately, during the pub crawl, Earth gets invaded by aliens who take over the people of the town where they're from and replace them with robots, essentially, or Smashy Smashy Eggman. There are some fantastic comedic lines in this, brilliant comic performances. Fantastic to see Nick Frost playing the straight man as opposed to the butt of the joke, which he has done in both Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. But it's got a great cast as well, especially you think you've got, who's in it? You've got Simon Pegg, you've got Nick Frost, you've got Eddie Marsan, Martin Freeman, my brain's gone, Paddy Considine, yeah, Rosamund Pike, and then you've got cameos from people like Michael Smiley, who, if you know Spaced, you'll know he's in that. He's in Shaun of the Dead as well. And it's got the guy from Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, the old guy. What? I can't remember it. Like, it's late. I'm trying to remember what the names are of these people. But The World's End is really good. I love apocalyptic type of stuff, as you know, because I've talked about post-apocalyptic films being my favourite genre, well, subgenre of science fiction. I did try and write a book on it, which I'm considering doing as a video essay, but I'm just working out how to do that because I've never done it before. I did, like I said on the podcast, I did buy a brand new microphone, so possibly I'm going to use that to record, and I got to work out how to download clips to put into it, into the video, because I'll just be doing the narration. I won't be doing it in front of camera. But yeah, The World's End's really good. It's not my favourite of the trilogy, of the Cornetto trilogy. And that is because, like I said, it does have a more serious tone in it. I don't think the jokes hit as much as the other films, but it's just a fun movie. Like I said, great cast, fun movie, action-packed. Nick Frost playing the straight man, Simon Pegg playing the doofus. Just, it's good. It's really good. Sorry, this video is going to be really short because I'm on 19 minutes and I've only got 3 films left. I say 3 films. I've got 2 films left. So then, my third pick in the top 3 is Spaced. Like I said, I was including this in this countdown because this is Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg's literally calling card. This show is phenomenal. It is 12 episodes. Is it 12 episodes? Yes, 12 episodes of brilliant comedy, geeky references, and just unbelievably endlessly quotable lines. There are multiple different cameos from British comedic actors, like Kevin Eldon is in it, and Bill Bailey is in it. Bill Bailey plays Simon Pegg's character Tim's boss at a comic store called the Fantasy Bazaar. And who else is in it? Yeah, Kevin Eldon plays a Matrix-esque Agent Smith in the opening episode of Series 2. John Sim from Life on Mars is in that same episode. Who else is in there? Just a lot of faces that you'd recognise from 90s British comedy. Not like the sitcom stuff, but like the alternative sketchy stuff that you would see on the Paramount Comedy Channel or Comedy Central, and as it became. But yeah, it's so good. It follows Tim Bisley and Daisy Steiner. Tim has now... It opens with Tim having broken up with his girlfriend and having to move out, and Daisy being unemployed and having to move out of her flat because it's not even a flat, it's a squat. So Tim is in a cafe just looking through a paper and for apartments, and Daisy sits next to him because she's also looking for an apartment, and they start talking, and they after a couple of days they find a listing for an apartment, but they only want married couple, and obviously they're not married or a couple, so they decide to like kind of trick the landlady into seeing them by pretending to be a couple. They move into this place, and the landlady is a alcoholic single mother named Marsha, who is obsessed with the person who lives in the basement of the house. His name is Brian. He's an artist who specializes in pain and suffering, and he's played by Mark Heap from Green Wing and lots of other things. Friday Night Dinner as well, another British sitcom. And it also introduces characters like Tim's best friend Mike, played by Nick Frost, which was his first ever acting role, and he is so good. He has some amazing lines. He's a part of the Territorial Army, but he's been kicked out because he tried to steal a tank and invade Paris. It's just so stupid. But you've also got like Peter Serafinowicz in it, which is I think he's in an episode that came out after he'd filmed, or after he'd done the voiceover for Darth Maul in Phantom Menace. But he went on to obviously be in lots of things in the States, but he had a fantastic sketch show called the Peter Serafinowicz Show in the UK, which had some really funny, like classic, quotable and memorable sketches, like Kitchen Gun, which was like a parody of Sill It Bang Bang and the dirt is gone. Kitchen Gun Bang and the dirt is gone. It's stupid. Who else was in it? Yeah, like I said, Michael Smiley from who appeared in The World's End is also in this. He plays a bike courier and a friend of Tim's called Tyres, who is off his face 90% of the time because he's a raver. He's a raver. He's a bike messenger as well, and he's always on whatever drugs he can find. But there's lots of like little cameos and episodes starring people that you'd recognise. Like Series 2 has an episode dedicated to like robot wars, where they make robots to fight each other and battle, which opens in a sort of parody of RoboCop, which is really, really cool. I mean, there's a lot of references to classic 80s movies and other like classic movies. I think Series 2 has like really good references to like Don't Look Now and stuff like that. But yeah, you get people like Reece Shearsmith is in it. Kevin Eldon's in it. This is mostly the second season because I don't think it was as big the first time round. Who else? John Sim was in it, like I already said. Bill Bailey plays Tim's boss. Who else? There's a few other people as well. Tony Way from Edge of Tomorrow, the big guy who keeps getting crushed, and he goes into battle just in his exosuit and no clothes. He's in it as well. He plays a paperboy, but I think he was like 35 or something like that. God, who else? Who else is in it? It's just really, really good. Like I said, it's 12 episodes long. It has a start, it has an end, and it doesn't really need any more than that. 2 series, Series 1 and Series 2, endlessly quotable, brilliantly directed on a television budget by Edgar Wright, which, if you watch that and then you follow on with Shaun of the Dead, you will see so many similarities between his directing style in Spaced and what he then carried on into the Cornetto trilogy. A lot of the stuff, like Scott Pilgrim, also takes some inspiration from that style in Spaced, but Baby Driver and Last Night in Soho seem completely different. They're Hollywood movies. They're not necessarily... I know Scott Pilgrim is a Hollywood movie, but unlike the Cornetto trilogy, those movies don't tend to follow the same sort of directing style that he has in Spaced. But if you've never seen Spaced, I highly recommend it. I'm going to show you the box set again. There's a lot of Star Wars references in this. Even the cover is a reference to the old Drew Struzan style artwork from the Star Wars posters. Just amazing. I really want to rewatch Spaced again. I've watched it like 20 times and I love it every single time that I watch it. Then we have the final 2, and this was so hard to choose between which one to put first and which one to put second. Ultimately, and even though I absolutely love this movie, and it's probably in my top 5 top 5 comedies of all time, it is Shaun of the Dead. I really, really struggled between this one and the other one. But Shaun of the Dead, amazing. This film is born from Spaced. There is an episode of Spaced where Tim has been playing Resident Evil, and he gets spooked by it and has like a daydream where there are zombies in the flat, and he has to take them out. It's just bonkers, but also so cool. And because of that, and because of how much of a fan of Dawn of the Dead Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright were, they decided that they should sort of elaborate on that section of that episode of Spaced, which coincidentally has David Walliams and Paul Kaye, Dennis Pennis in it. And so they decided to take the idea from that episode and spin it out into a full movie called Shaun of the Dead. Obviously, it's not Spaced, but it has a lot of the cast from Spaced is in it, and there's a lot of, it's like very, very close directing styles and elements that he put into this, especially with the comedy writing as well, which was written between Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. It's funny as hell. It's endlessly quotable again. It seems to be that every time that Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright get together to write a movie, it becomes just so unbelievably quotable because the writing is so good. Yet, I could not tell you a line from either Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim, or Last Night in Soho. But Shaun of the Dead, I can quote till the cows come home. Same with World's End, and same with Hot Fuzz. Probably even more so with Hot Fuzz. But I think the idea behind this was it was meant to be a... what do they call it? It was meant to be happening in the UK. What was the zombies happening in the UK was meant to be a sort of UK version of what was happening in Dawn of the Dead, even though Dawn of the Dead was made something like 28 years prior, because this is 2004, and Dawn of the Dead was 1978. And even that's just fucking stupid to even think about that. But yeah, it's probably the best British zombie movie ever made. And I'm not discounting 28 Days Later, even though I'm not a fan of 28 Days Later. That does have a place in the zombie kind of over because it is genre defining. At the time it came out in 2001, I think it was, or 2002. But Shaun of the Dead basically took the premise of shuffling zombies and turned it into a very British, very funny comedy, and I love it. And I have a t-shirt. I will show you the t-shirt. This t-shirt is very, very cool. It's by here because I wore it the other day. But I love Shaun of the Dead. I also love Shaun the Sheep. So obviously, if someone's going to make a t-shirt of Shaun the Sheep, you make it Shaun of the Dead. I love this t-shirt. It's so cool. So yeah, Shaun of the Dead, absolutely amazing. Simon Pegg's awesome in this. Nick Frost as Ed, fantastic. Who else is it? Kate Ashfield as Liz, amazing. Dylan Moran. Again, I saw Dylan Moran live at a comedy club, and he was testing out new material for when he was doing the Edinburgh Festival. And normally he would be half an hour on stage. He did an hour and 10 minutes of just comedy, and it was unbelievably good. And I fucking love Dylan Moran. I love Black Books. I loved him in Shaun of the Dead. Just Dylan Moran's so good. Who else is in it? It is Lucy Davis from The Office, and not the American Office, the British Office, and that show, that Sabrina show. Not Sabrina the Teenage Witch with Melissa Joan Hart, but the Netflix reboot, which is more in line with the Archie comics. Well, which follows the Archie comics, not the Melissa Joan Hart version. Bill Nighy, again, unbelievable. Bill Nighy's great in fucking everything. And Penelope Wilton. So, yeah. But you get little cameos from Tony Way, Reece Shearsmith, Martin Freeman, Jessica Hines. Who else is in it? The one who plays Marsha in Spaced. I'm trying to think who else is in there as well. I can't remember now. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead, absolutely amazing. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So finally, like I said, it was really difficult to choose which film to put at the top spot for my favourite ranking of Edgar Wright movies. But as I haven't talked about it, clearly number one is Hot Fuzz. And Hot Fuzz is fucking incredible. Hot Fuzz is a masterclass in how to write a comedy script. Every single line is a punchline. It was a setup and then a punchline and a stupid gag. It's just comedy, 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 comedy. And it is probably, outside of like Blazing Saddles or Spaceballs, or something like that, probably one of the greatest parodies ever made. Even though it plays the whole movie sort of straight, as a straight narrative, it is one of the best parodies ever made, because it is parodying action cinema, and it does it perfectly. Like taking on things like Bad Boys and Point Break and Hong Kong action cinema, like diving through the air and firing two guns at one time. And it's got throwbacks to like Shaun of the Dead as well, like the jumping over the fence. It's got fucking James Bond in it. It's got Timothy Dalton in it. It's got references to like Straw Dogs, and just, it's so good. Jim Broadbent's fantastic in it. Not the first time he's played a copper, by the way. He played a a copper in Only Fools and Horses who was arrested for smuggling diamonds into the UK through Dal, Rodney and Uncle Albert. And he got kicked off the force and put in prison, and then comes out and we find out that he is actually the husband of Raquel. So not the first time he's played a copper. He played Slater the Slag in that. He's really good in this. But then you've got Paddy Considine again. You've got Rafe Spall. You've got Olivia Colman. Oscar winner Olivia Colman is in this as PC Doris. Billy Whitelaw. You've got Anne Reid. I'm trying to think who else is in it. Loads. There's so many good British actors in Hot Fuzz. And like I said, it spoofs action cinema, but it does it in such a fantastic way that you don't really think of it as a spoof, even though that's essentially what it's doing. Oh, right at the beginning, you got Martin Freeman, Steve Coogan, Bill Nighy, even Peter Jackson, Kate Blanchett is in it, and these are just very, very quick cameos. Kate Blanchett and Peter Jackson, you barely even realise. But just, oh my god! I said I wanted to watch Space. Now I want to watch Hot Fuzz because I can watch Hot Fuzz any time of the day. Nick Frost is comedy fucking gold in this as Danny Butterman. Nicholas Angel, played by Simon Pegg, is a no-nonsense cop who is so good at his job that he puts the rest of the force to shame. So he is then transferred to the small city of Samford, where he uncovers a plot to buy up land and stuff like that. It's a bit of a complicated plot to describe, but it plays out so simply. It's fantastic. And yeah, just an absolutely fantastic movie. Like I said, it's a masterclass in how to write a comedy script. It's got every punchline. Well, it's got a setup and punchline every 30 seconds. It's so fucking good. So there we go. That is my ranking at number 7. Is, hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, and number 7 is Scott Pilgrim. I just don't get on with it. And number 6, Baby Driver. I need to reevaluate it. Number 5, Last Night in Soho. It's good. I like it. I just cannot put it above the rest of these. Number 4, The World's End. Really good. Just not as good as the other two in the trilogy. Number 3 is Spaced, complete series 1 and 2, because I had to put it in there as it was the thing that gave us essentially Edgar Wright as a named filmmaker. Then at number 2, fantastic Shaun of the Dead. And at number 1, it had to be Hot Fuzz because it is the best of all 3 Cornetto trilogies. And I think it's the best film that Edgar Wright has made thus far. So there we are. So I did manage to drag this on a bit longer than I was expecting. Yes, it's a shorter one than the previous one. I know the Quentin Tarantino ranking was a long one. Thank you to everyone who sat and watched me talk about Quentin Tarantino movies for an hour and a half. Thanks for everyone who's listened to the podcast. The podcast is literally just me talking bollocks for an hour or so into my microphone, which is then recorded on my computer or my laptop. And I quite enjoy doing that. I'm going to try and do that a little bit more. I have recorded a 3rd episode, but I'm not really a fan of it, so I might just delete that one and do a new one. Thanks for everybody who's watched and commented and subscribed and stuff. And I really, really do appreciate it. So that is my ranking of Edgar Wright movies. Stay tuned. There will be a What the Fuck Did I Buy, which is coming up. I do have a few things. I'm waiting on a couple more to come from Australia, and which you will then see, and possibly another quick trip to HMV. I was in HMV the other day as I was meeting some friends for a meal, and the Arrow sale was on, and I almost picked up In fact, I did pick up, it was in my hand, I picked up the 4K of Tremors, but I put it back because I was like, I want to come in and do a proper shop, not have to rush. So I may do a quick journey into Cardiff City Centre and do a bit of a big boy HMV shop. So thank you, everyone. This is my ranking of Edgar Wright movies. Hope you enjoyed it. As usual, I'm going to throw up the peace sign. I'm going to give you a salute. I'm going to tell you I'm out. Cheers.